What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds with Joe. We're back on the Lagg-3, and this should be the final episode today. We're going to start off with decals, do a little bit of weathering, get all the parts and pieces glued on, and then we're going to call it a day. Last episode, we went ahead and put on the landing gears. We've got everything overcoated in a nice gloss coat of Future. So next step, of course, decals. Now, the kit wants us to go ahead and do a very specific version of White 78. We mentioned this last time. I won't be using the decals that came with the kit because we've actually backdated it to an early 1942 version of the same aircraft. That, of course, looks like this with the red arrow on the side of the fuselage with a red star on the fuselage and the White 78 with a red star on the tail. Now, what we're going to do for that, though, is we're only going to be using the ICM decals for that White 78. Everything else, I don't see any reason to use those. We have another decal sheet for all of our stars. Just those White 78s, that's what we're going to be using on the kit decals. Now, the authentic decal sheet that I've got here, I've never used these before, but it came included with the model kit, so we should be able to use these in place of that. There's a reason why the guy included it, I'm sure. Now, I've used ICM decals before, and they tend to be a little wonky, a little finicky. These, I'm hoping, are going to be much better. Plus, we've got stencils here with the authentic decals. ICM has no stencils included, so that's going to be a real big upgrade for sure. So let's go ahead and cue up a time lapse, guys. Jump right on in. We're going to start off with cutting out those decals, do our standard decal procedure, and see what we come out with. So let's do it. Well, this is just a kit that keeps on giving. I've had so many problems with this. Let's go ahead and just dive into the latest problem. Now, the authentic decal sheet that we used here, unfortunately, didn't work very well. I put one of the red stars into the water to go ahead and lift it off the backing, and the entire decal absolutely just splintered into pieces. So that's not going to work. I then decided, okay, well, let's go ahead and pull out the ICM decals, and we'll try that and see how they look. And as you can tell here, the reds do not match. We have a lighter red here for the star, and we have a darker red that we airbrushed on. So that's not going to fly. And the only thing I can think to do is to go ahead and airbrush all the red star markings myself using the same color red as I used for the arrow. I was hoping to avoid that, but I don't think there's any other way. Now, to paint those red stars, I'm going to be using a set of masks cut right here on my bench. And to do that, we're going to be taking our pre-scanned decal sheet. I'm going to put that down on top of a strip of blue tack tape. And we're just going to, with a ruler, cut out those red stars down through the paper and down through the tape. That will just go ahead and give us both an inside mask and an outer mask that we can use to line everything up and to paint those red stars. This way I can use my same red color that I used before, and everything should line up and everything should be the same color and they should all match. That's the important part. We'll also have to remove those ICM decals on the side and not remove the White 78, just the red stars. So we still have a lot more work to do, and unfortunately, since the decals did not work out, it's going to take a little bit longer. But let's go ahead and get back into that time lapse. Let's cut out all these markings and paint on all the red stars. And here we go. We have all of our red stars painted on with that same color red as we had for the arrow. And as you can see, everything matches. And I think we are looking much better this way than we were with the ICM decals. It's a shame that the authentic decals broke up in water. I just really hate that. But at least the stencil still worked because I was able to go ahead and put those on, and we coated everything with a nice top coat of Future. So all the decals are nicely sealed in, and we're ready to move on with weathering. I really can't wait to get this kit off the bench because this has been nothing but trouble, seriously. So we have our propeller we need to go ahead and put on. We have the wheels. We also have to put on the landing gear covers, as well as a few odds and ends like the landing light, and then of course our antenna with the aerials. So we're going to go ahead and get that going. But before we do any of that, I need to go ahead and do some weathering. Now for this particular model, I want to go ahead and try something a little bit different. Joe was nice enough to give me a whole set of these AK panel liners for different camo colors, and I have 2 here that we're going to be using for this particular build. I've never tried these before, but I think these are pretty simple, just to go ahead and draw them around the different panels and to highlight different sections, and then we can wait for them to dry and wipe them off, and it should be okay. Now we have one that's meant for a blue and gray camo. That's going to work well for the bottom section of the Lagg. We have another one here that's meant for black and green camo, and that should go on the top of this. So I'm going to go ahead and work with these, and let's go ahead and kick it in here and see what happens. All right, everybody, we are back, and we have a couple more things to do before we can go ahead and call this Lagg finished. One of those things we have to do, we have to go ahead and finish off the cockpit seat. Now, to do that, we'll be using Tamiya tape as the belts themselves, and for the buckles, we're going to use solder. In fact, we're going to use 0.3 millimeter solder, which is super flexible, very tiny, and that should work just fine. Now, these won't be 100% accurate, but I think they'll be close enough to go ahead and give us the impression of having belts inside the cockpit. I've never tried using solder before. Again, Joe gave me this tip, and he said this works really, really well for piping and wiring. So why not try to use it for belt buckles as well? Let's cross our fingers and hope that this works out. Like I've done in the past, we're going to take our tweezers and we're going to bend a piece of the solder down into a D shape. That's going to be the buckle itself. And then we'll just string it on through the belt, tape it down to the model, glue it, and I think we'll be good to go. We need to make 4 of these, 2 for the shoulder harnesses, and then 2 for the lap belts. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but I think, like I said, it's going to be close enough. Once I have the belt more or less shaped the way I want it, we're then going to glue it down to the side of the seat. We can first stick it down and then position it and move it around until we get it in the right area. Then, using our super glue, we can come back in, tack it in place, and we're good to go. So that should be pretty easy. Our finished product looks something like this. We need to go ahead and drop a little bit of oil on there to weather it down, but I think honestly, this looks pretty good. Now that our seat is all finished up, we have 4 belts, and like I said, they're not 100% accurate, but they look good enough, especially being inside a cockpit with a covered canopy. I think we're good. I want to tack down this edge just a little bit more with some super glue. Then we're going to toss a quick oil wash over that to kind of darken down the belts a little bit, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and glue it inside the cockpit. So no sweat, right? Now the last thing I want to do here before we call this kit finished, I want to take my watercolor silver pencil and I want to come in here and chip a few parts and pieces around the engine. Now I'm not going to do the entire aircraft because like I mentioned before, most of the Lagg is made of a laminate wood. So I don't think you would get that silver coloring to come through in the same way as you would, say, around the engine, like with actual metal parts. So I'm not too concerned about chipping the entire area. Plus, since this is an early 1942 aircraft for Minanov, I'm not sure that it would be that heavily weathered just yet. Just some mild chipping to give it a nice subtle wear, and I think we're ready to go ahead and show you the final product. And here it is, 1/48 scale ICM Lagg-3 Series 11, all finished up. And I gotta tell you, I have never been happier to finish an aircraft model in my life. This thing fought me at every turn. We had fit issues, we had part issues, things just went wrong no matter what. For each episode, we at least had 1 or 2 things just happen that just kind of set me back. But I have finished it. It's done. I'm going to put it on the display shelf and we can call this one quits. Honestly, it didn't turn out that badly either, though I did end up cracking the canopy the last little bit there. And so again, par for the course, right? It's just one of those things. Though despite all the issues we had with the aircraft, I still had a ton of fun putting this thing together. It was a challenge, but my persistence paid off, and I think I have a decent looking Lagg-3 Series 11. I did do little things here and there. For example, I did add the aerial, I did add the wiring, I put seat belts in, I did a little bit of chipping here and there, I painted up the quick latches around the cowling. So yeah, overall, it's decent, and I'm happy I'm finally finished. We have some oil staining here at the bottom as well. I don't know if it's really authentic. That gray might be a little bit too dark as well. But you know what? I'm just happy to be done with this because I don't have to fight the kit anymore. I can put it in my display case and call it quits. On top of having to paint those markings, we also went ahead and added some material here. We had trouble and we had to rework the wing roots, as well as adding in an extra 12.7-inch machine gun. Word to the wise though, if you do end up building this kit, leave the rudder off to the very end. I kept knocking this mass balance off so many times, it was very frustrating. But you know what guys, we are done. It's all finished up and I'm really hoping you guys enjoyed this look at the Lagg-3 Series 11. But until our next episode, everybody, thank you so much for watching. You guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here soon for another episode of Ben Builds. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.